Pearl of Pope Francis, Chapter 1, Cardinal Tucho Fernández, his first pearl. An article by OSV News describes the growing controversy surrounding the book Mystical Passion, Spirituality and Sensuality, written in 1998 by Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernández, prefect of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. This text, which deals with the relationship between mysticism and sexuality, contains explicit descriptions and narratives that are interpreted by some experts as a worrying sign of an inappropriate and potentially manipulative view of spirituality and sexuality. Many victims of sexual abuse have highlighted how the content of the book corresponds to the patterns used by perpetrators to lure their victims with sexual content or even normalize abusive dynamics under the guise of mysticism or divine love. Although Fernández has downplayed the significance of the book and called it a youthful mistake, critics argue that the book reflects a worrying profile with blurred ethical boundaries and emphasize that its publication should have led to a deep reflection on his suitability for the current role within the Church. Here is a summary of the main points of the article. Two victims of sexual abuse have expressed their deep concern about the resurfacing of the controversy surrounding the book Mystical Passion, Spirituality and Sensuality by Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernández. The text, published over 25 years ago, contains chapters on the relationship between spirituality, sexuality and orgasm, as well as the narrative of a 16-year-old girl describing a passionate and erotic encounter with Jesus. Faith Hakesley, a victim of abuse by a member of the clergy, said that the excerpts from the book she read made her sick and reminded her of the arguments of the perpetrator who justified the violence with spirituality. Although she does not accuse Fernández of being an abuser, she emphasizes how the language used in the book can be interpreted as a form of grooming, both spiritually and sexually. Teresa Pitt Green, founder of a Christian network for restorative justice, expressed concern about the power imbalance revealed in the report, particularly in the context of the relationship between an adult priest and a minor. She pointed out that the book may not meet the ethical and abuse prevention standards that the Church has introduced in recent decades. In his defense, Cardinal Fernández explained that the book was written after listening to young couples trying to understand the spiritual meaning of their relationship, but he admitted that he would not write something like that today. However, this response was criticized for focusing on the interpretations of others rather than introspecting on his own approach. The article also cites other cases of religious leaders who have used similar arguments about spirituality to justify abuse, such as Jean Vanier, the founder of L'Arche. The experts interviewed concluded that this type of text, although not directly suggestive of abuse, can be dangerous in the hands of vulnerable people or in situations with power imbalances. Therefore, this controversy raises serious questions about the ethical boundaries in pastoral leadership and the ability of individuals like Cardinal Fernández to exercise important roles in protection and leadership within the Catholic Church. The appointment of Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernández as prefect of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith raises serious questions about Pope Francis's priorities in selecting the leaders of the Catholic Church, despite his controversial past. At a time marked by decades of clerical sex abuse scandals, the choice of a cardinal whose work includes books like Mystical Passion, Spirituality and Sensuality, or Heal Me with Your Kiss, The Art of Kissing, texts considered by many to be inappropriate and contrary to the Church's ethical standards, creates a blatant contradiction. The Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith is one of the most important institutions in the Church, tasked with protecting doctrinal and moral integrity. Yet the choice of Fernández, who does not have a strong background in dogmatic theology and is widely considered a controversial figure, seems to ignore the need to appoint a leader with integrity, especially in a context where trust in the Church hierarchy is severely shaken. Why did the Pope, knowing Cardinal Fernández's past, decide to entrust him with such an important office? One could argue that this decision corresponds to a vision of a more pastoral Church, less tied to traditional doctrinal rigor, something Francis has always promoted. However, many see this as a sign of indifference to the deep wounds caused by sexual abuse and the need to send a clear message about transparency and accountability. The appointment also highlights the apparent gap between the public perception of the Church and the internal decisions of its leaders. In an institution plagued by an abuse crisis, where combating pedophilia should be a moral and practical priority, decisions like this seem to ignore the impact they can have on the victims, the faithful, and the reputation of the Church itself. Are moral concepts and teachings no longer a priority in some circles of the Church? This situation raises troubling questions. How important are ethical and doctrinal qualifications in appointments to key positions in the Vatican? And more importantly, how can the faithful be expected to trust a church that seems to ignore fundamental issues in its leadership? These questions reflect not only the frustration of many Catholics, but also the need for more transparent leadership, committed to the moral example that pastoral vocation requires. This was Wanda's Bell. Don't forget to like and subscribe. God bless you, God's warriors.